Okay. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Reality. This time, I'm going to discuss some of the races of D&D a little bit and the class combinations. Now, what could go with what race? Now, one thing I'm going to quickly mention is a race that has stats that can be moved around has a lot of flexibility into what class it can go into. A very popular example is the variant human, which has 2+1s that can move to any stat. It also gets a feat, so a very popular choice, actually. In fact, the most popular combination is the human fighter. It's very new player friendly, because basically the idea of a fighter is you hit things. Yeah, it's right there in the name. Fight. Of course, someone who's smart can turn that fighter into someone more than just a hitting machine. Yeah. Let's get started. And one thing to note is that a book called the book Tasha's changes a lot of things. One of the things it changes is the ability scores. It gives the option to allow the player to move their starting stat points, from their race around. Like say, maybe they want their dwarf to be intelligent as opposed to being wise. And also, it lets them move around like certain weapon proficiencies, armor proficiencies, or tool proficiencies. Because a number of dwarves, a number of elves, hobgoblin, and Gith-Yankee, which are they start off with a number of weapon proficiencies and armor proficiencies that, if you was to make them a martial class, which their lore seems to indicate, it would make the use of those weapons and armor redundant. For instance, dwarves are proficient with light hammers, hand axes, battle axes and warhammers, and the mountain dwarves are proficient with light armor and medium. And their stats seem to be geared towards a martial class like fighter. Well, fighters, they have proficiencies with light armor, medium armor, hand axes, light hammers, war hammers, and battle axes. So it's redundant. But with Tasha's, you can now take those proficiencies with those extra weapons, chunk them out, and grab something else. Like say, maybe that dwarf was more interested in playing music. Or maybe you might want to grab the other tools that the dwarves are known for, because they can pick a tool. Well, at least now, after checking out those extra weapons, hey, let's grab a bunch of more tools that we're good with, That can be useful in a campaign where you're doing social stuff. And to say nothing about skill proficiencies, you can now move that around. Like say, elves, they have perception, all of them. Well, you can now chuck perception out and put in something else that might fit your elf a little bit better. Like maybe they were more into building, maybe they were into weightlifting and athletics, okay? Or acrobatics. Or something that isn't covered by their background, anyways. And we'll get more into Tasha's later. Let's see, starting off with the Player's Handbook. And of course, you have the different classes. You have Artificer as described in Eberron and Tasha's. Basically, that guy from shorthand, that guy comes up with different contraptions. Then you have the Barbarian, a fierce warrior of a primitive background that can enter a battle rage. Basically, he just gets really angry. Bard, an inspiring musician whose powers echo the music of creation. He likes to use his music. And has a reputation about going into a lot of bedrooms. Enough said there. Cleric, a priesthood champion who wields divine magic in service of a higher power. Basically, it's like, yo God, can you help me here? Thank you. Then you have the druid, priest of the old faith, wielding the powers of nature, moonlight, plant growth, fire, lightning, and adapting animal forms. Basically, you want to turn into animals and be one with nature? This is your dude. Fighter, master of martial combat, skilled with a variety of weapons and armor. Kind of says it right there. He's good at fighting, but even then, a fighter can be skilled in more than just fighting with the right skill set. Monk, master of martial arts, harnessing the power of body in pursuit of physical and spiritual perfection. Basically, this guy is kind of inspired by those kung fu movies. But keep in mind, you have a lot of other monks, and like say in Europe, some of them are known for drinking and the like, but they're also known for things like alchemy and other sort of things. Let's say that they didn't learn how to fight, and there's actually some evidence that they at least learned, as everyone at least learned the concept of self-defense. Kind of useful. Paladin, a holy warrior bound to a sacred oath. Basically, he's like a fighter who's got holy powers. Yeah. That's how I read them anyways. Ranger, a warrior who uses martial prowess and the nature magic to combat threats on the edges of civilization. Basically, again, sounds like a little bit of a fighter who's got a touch of druidic magic in them. Rogue, a scoundrel who uses stealth and trickery to overcome obstacles and enemies. So, basically, this is a guy who likes to sneak around, stab people in the back, take things that don't belong to them. Although that's not necessarily what they have to do. Maybe they're actually a smart guy who comes up with a plan of, hey, could you give me that? Thank you. Sorcerer, a spellcaster who draws on an inherent magic from a gift or bloodline. A good example of that might be Elsa from the Frozen movies. Because she has that innate ability to use ice. Warlock, wielder of magic that is derived from a bargain from an explanar entity. You make a deal with somebody and you gain power. Some people could argue that clerics are also warlocks in their own right. Draw, they make some kind of deal with a bigger dude. This here, wizard, a scholarly magic user capable of manipulating the structures of reality. You basically went to school to learn stuff. Well, so now, let's go through the races. Dwarf, very common to your fantasy series, Let's see here. In general, they have a +2 to Constitution. And that means more health for this guy. Which might be useful if, say, you're a wizard or a sorcerer. Because they have a D6 hit die. An extra point here and there might be useful. Especially if they accidentally end up on the front lines. They have dark vision, useful. Resilience, useful for dealing with poison. Combat training, like I mentioned, they're skilled with battle axe, hand axe, light hammer, and warhammer. With a martial class, this is going to be redundant. But something that isn't a martial class, or isn't proficient with those weapons, like rogues, not proficient with battle axes or warhammers, might be useful. You gain proficiencies with an artisan tool of your choice. Smith's tools, brewer's tools, or mason's tools. Well, if you're a martial, if you go martial class, and you decide to check out, those extra proficiencies for weapons, hey, grab the other tools. That might be useful. And then maybe grab an instrument or three. Stone cutting, whenever you make an intelligence history check related to the origin of stonework, you are considered proficient in the history skill, and add double your proficiency bonus to the check skill instead of your normal proficiency bonus. Basically, you have temporary expertise in certain skills. Yeah. Even if you're not otherwise proficient in the history. Kind of useful. Situational, of course. Languages, I ain't gonna bother. Subrace, you have Hill Dwarf, +1 to Wisdom. Also gain an extra hit points. And, well, actually, that's, yeah. They're the guys that get the extra hit point, useful on a sorcerer or a wizard. Well, to say nothing but the +2 to Constitution. Mountain Dwarf, they have a +2 to their strength, and they also have proficiency with light and medium armor. Again, useful on a class that doesn't have those proficiencies. So, basically, now Constitution-wise, that's good for any class. Wisdom, that's good with, like, say, let's see here, clerics and druids, they rely on wisdom. Monk, they like wisdom a little bit, and adds to their AC. Let's see, rangers love wisdom as well. Let's see here. For the Mountain Dwarf, the strength score, well, let's see here. Strength-based fighter, strength-based, well, your barbarian, and your paladin, and anything else that likes to use strength for a melee attack. That being said, those weapon and armor proficiencies, if you're going for the martial class, they're kind of redundant. So, in that case, borrow a little bit from Tasha's, and if you're going to go martial class, check out the dwarf combat training, and grab a couple of tools. Grab a couple of artisan tools, or instruments. That way, you at least say, hey, maybe you want to say, grab chef's tools. That way, hey, you can now, between brewer's tools and chef's tools, hey, you can now cook up a decent lunch. That's your elves, Legolas type of guy. See here? Dexterity scores increased by 2. A lot of classes like dexterity, especially if you're going to be wearing light and medium armor, or no armor at all. They have dark vision, keen and proficient and perception, so they're good at seeing things. Ancestry, advantage against being sharp, can't be made to put to sleep. You have high elves, wood elves, and dark elves, also known as drow. High elf, +1 to intelligence. So, again, we're looking at something like a wizard or an artificer, or an eldritch knight version of the fighter, or an arcane trickster version of the rogue. You're proficient with long sword, short bow, and longbow. If you're martial class, chuck though, like a fighter or a ranger, chuck those out, because and grab some grab some tools or instruments, because those are redundant. Okay, I mean, if you're gonna be a wizard, yeah, it's gonna be good to grab those. Although you're gonna go for a artificer, you might want to check out the short bow, because short bows are simple weapons, and depending on what subclass you go into for artificer, again, you might want to check out if you're going to go into the battle forge. I mean, which one is it? Battlesmith. Squirrel. Yeah. If you're going to go for a battlesmith, check out, you could probably check, and you're already playing a character that's at level 3 or better, check out the long sword, short sword, and longbow, because they already have those as a battlesmith. Or at least you gain them. And also this could be applied to certain clerics, you know. Because, I mean, some clerics, they gain proficiency with martial weapons, because they already start off with proficiency with simple weapons. Yeah. And basically, sometimes you might want to check out, if there's a race that has proficiency with a weapon, you might want to chuck that weapon proficiency out and grab a tool. Last year they have back to High Elf, they also grab a free cantrip. That's kind of cool for the wizard. Well, let's see here. Wood Elf, +1 to Wisdom. Claire, let's see here. And, well, let's see here. Wood Elf, ooh, that goes good for a Druid. Well, Druid, Cleric, and Monk, really good. Ranger, already mentioned. A little bit faster. They have the same weapon proficiencies that the High Elves have. They can also have a chance to hide. Let's see here. Then you have Drow. Supposed to be evil, but who cares? Charisma increases by 1. So you look. I mean, let's see here. You have Bard. That'd be a really good pick. You have Sorcerer and Warlock. Really good picks there. Paladin. Yeah. That's actually useful, because with a +2 to their dexterity. In this case, because, well, for the most part, if you're going to go Paladin, you're going to dump dexterity. Or at least I did. And with a +2 to the dexterity for being an elf, well, let's see here. Your dexterity is not going to be a 10. So, you don't need to worry about the negative penalty there too much. Except in a stealth check. Then you're still at disadvantage, because you're going to be wearing heavy armor. You have superior dark vision, which is useful in, like I said, the Underdark or the situation is set in the dark. Yes, sunlight sensitivity. That stinks. In this case, let's hope your perception score's decently high. You know, the dancing lights cantrip, then later on fairy fire, then later on darkness, charisma, and then you are proficient with rapier, short swords, and hand crossbows. Again, well, if you're a rogue, guess what? I chuck those out, because those are weapons that rogues use. Seriously. Although if you're going to go for a, of course you're going for a wizard, okay. Or a sorcerer, that might be useful. If you're going to go for a paladin, chuck them out. Sure, you have halfling, short little fellers. This here, +2 to dexterity. I'm not going to go over this again. They're a little bit slower. They have the lucky feat ability, useful. They have brave, the advantage against being frightened, kind of useful, I guess. And this you're able to move through spaces of larger creatures. Let's see here. You have the Lightfoot, +1 to charisma. I'm not going to go over all that again. Naturally stealthy. That's kind of, you're able to hide behind creatures. So you have stout, +1 to constitution. Kind of useful, I guess. You have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, and you have resistance against poison damage. That's kind of useful. Human. Hey, that's me. And you. Well, your ability scores each increased by 1. That's the vanilla human. And, well, vanilla humans aren't really all that special. Again, there's a +1 to each of your stats, and that's it. No skill proficiencies, no weapon proficiencies, no nothing. But that's where variant human comes into play. You have 2 different ability scores of your choice increased by 1. This, you know, that's kind of useful. It's very flexible. I mean, with a human, like I said, vanilla human, you know, they can go into any class. Let's see your skills. You get proficiency with 1 skill of your choice. That's kind of useful. And a feat. Some of these feats can be quite powerful. And others, not so powerful. But still, the human is a very popular choice. Because, hey, we're human. Dragonborn, you know, somehow they have a dragon in there. I ain't gonna ask how. +2 to strength and +1 to charisma. Paladin! Valiant, fighter, strength-based fighter, barbarian, anything that uses a strength score, and again, anything that likes charisma. I'm not going to go over those choices again. They can gain resistance to a certain type of energy attack. Well, certain types of damage, depending on their ancestry. So you have gnomes, again, another short little feller. +2 to intelligence. So, artificer, wizard, arcane trickster, eldritch knight, you know, good picks for them. They have dark vision, that's good. They have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws against magic, that's kind of useful. Yeah, Force Gnomes, that's a +1 to their dex. I'm not going to go over what that's good against. Minor Illusion, that's kind of useful. Speak with Small Beasts, it's kind of useful. So something like a Druid or a Force or a Ranger, those are good picks right there. Rock Gnome, +1 to Constitution. That's, Tinkerer, Arts, proficiency with Arts' tools, Tinker's tools. You can come up with some sort of little clockwork device, kind of a natural artificer. Half-elf, basically one of your folks was an elf, and the other one was it's implied to be human, although, who knows, maybe the other half was an orc. I don't know. Your charisma scores increased by 2, and 2 ability scores of your choice increased by 1. So, theoretically, you can make charisma your dump stat, and put 2 +1s on the other thing, on something else. Although, this will make them really good as a paladin, warlock, bard, or sorcerer. And every other class in general. They are proficient with 2 skills of their choice. Half-orc, idea is one of your parents was an orc, the other one is implied to be human. Maybe the other half is an elf. I mean, there's no mentions about the half-elves, half-orcs. But you'd think that, even in a fantasy, those things would exist. +2 to strength, +1 to constitution. So, again, this is like a strength-based kind of guy, fighter, strength-based fighter, barbarian, and any strength-based cleric or druid, and even paladin. Doesn't get the charisma bonus, but it's still, again, he's still pretty strong. So, dark vision, menacing, proficient in intimidation. Relentless endurance. When you are reduced to 1 hit point, but not killed outright, you can drop to 1 hit point instead. So basically, they think you're dead. No, you're not. You're still standing. Savage attack, basically, when you score a critical hit with a melee weapon, you can roll an extra hit die. You can roll an extra damage dice and add it to the total of the critical hits. Basically, you're boosting your critical damage. And you have Tiefling, they have a little touch of the Fiend in them, okay? +1 to intelligence, +2 to charisma. So, intelligence, I've already mentioned, wizard, artificer. And then for the charisma, well, let's see here, you have bard, warlock, sorcerer, paladin. Dark vision, resistance to fire damage, useful. You also gain a couple of little spells, that's kind of useful. Now let's go to Sarko's Adventures Guide. Let's see here, we have all the extra races. Dwarves are the same, with the exception of the Grey Dwarves, also known as Duragar, +1 to strength. I'm not going to say what all that's good for. One of their issues is they suffer the same sort of issues that Drow does, where they have extra dark vision, but they have sunlight sensitivity. They also but they also grab a couple of spells, larger dudes, kind of useful. As well as invisibility, kind of useful. Let's see here. Mention of some extra sub races for elves, but annoyingly they don't go into details. You know, it would be kind of nice. You know, well. But let's see here. We have an extra halfling race, the Ghostwise Halfling. They have a +1 to their wisdom, which is kind of useful for those classes that use that. And they have the ability to speak telepathically to any creature within 30 feet. The creature understands you only if the two of you share a language. You can only speak to speak telepathically to one creature at a time. So that's kind of useful if you want to pass on a message to somebody without saying a word. So basically, if you have another race, another party member that happens to have telepathy, might be kind of useful. This your gnome. This year you have the deep gnome. +1 to dexterity, superior dark vision, no sunlight sensitivity. They can advantage to hide in rocky terrain, so that could kind of negate any stealth disadvantage you might otherwise have. Extra language. Half elves, but now you have some variations in half elves. Like half elf, like a wood elf can now, well, if you're half elf of descendant of, well, if you're a wood elf, you have a choice of foregoing skill versatility and instead take the elf trait keen senses perception. You're swapping out 2 skills for perception. No, thank you. I'd rather have the skill versatility, grab perception, and grab something else. Another skill. Or you can grab a skill based on your elf heritage. If you're a wood elf, you can now choose elf training. So if you're something like a wizard. Fleet-of-foot, you're a little bit faster. Nice good amount, hide a little bit better. Kind of useful. If you're a high elf, or moon or sun elf, according to in this setting, you can choose high elf weapon training or a cantrip. So, if you're a drow, you can choose the drow's magic. So that might be useful. With, grab drow's magic without the drawback of sunlight sensitivity. Kind of useful. Or of aquatic heritage, you can choose a swimming speed of 30 feet. Kind of useful if you're in a seafaring campaign. Tieflings. There's now the feral tiefling. Which has the option of increasing your dexterity by 2 as opposed to your charisma. And then you can also with this there's also the Devil's Tongue Tiefling, Hellfire Tiefling, and the Winged Tiefling. Hellfire and Devil's Tongue, they basically switch around the spells that a Tiefling gets. Winged Tiefling, on the other hand, chucks out the spells and gives you a flight speed of 30 feet, providing you're not wearing heavy armor. That's kind of cool. Can you just imagine, I mean, now that Dungeon Master has the other effect, oh no, this guy can fly! Let's see here. Here we have Volos, and let's see, how much longer do we have on this? Still got another half hour or so. Okay. Of course, get that. Now let's go to Volos. We have, of course, talks a little bit about monsters and a little bit, let's see here. Actual background on the different monsters. some of which are added as player races. Let's see here. Here's some of the character races. ASMR, basically, they're kind of touch of the angel. +2 to charisma. So, anything that's charisma based would be useful. They have dark vision, kind of useful. Celestial resistance, so resistance to necrotic and radiant damage, kind of useful. Doesn't come up all that often, but it's still useful. They know the light cantrip, that's kind of cool. They also have healing hands, that's kind of useful. That means no matter what you are, you basically are a backup healer. So, that's good. Protector, +1 to wisdom. Radiant soul, you're basically, let's see here, well, you can fly for a little bit and do extra radiant damage to one target, then you do damage to an attack or spell. That's kind of useful. Extra radiant damage equals your level. One could argue. Scourge, +1 to Constitution, radiant consumption. Yep, that's kind of nasty. As goes on the other end of it. Fallen ASMR, you're touched. You're kind of darker there. +1 to your strength, so. And basically, when you transform, any other creatures within 10 feet of you that can see you must succeed on the critical saving throw or become frightened of you. It's kind of cool. Let's hope it doesn't affect your allies. Furbolg, kind of a big blue dude with a red nose. +2 to wisdom, +1 to strength, so clerics and druids, I can see that. Rangers, definitely. They know some magic, which is kind of useful. Powerful build, they can carry extra stuff. And it even says right here what their classes tend to be. Druids, rangers, or fighters. Sometimes it's like vocations are passed down through generations. And, it kind of explains a little bit about why they might become certain classes. Next here, then there's the Goliath, another big strong type. +2 to strength, +1 to constitution. They have the ability, they have proficient with the athletic skill, and basically they can reduce a d12 worth of damage. And they have the powerful build, and they're also acclimated to cold clients. The idea is they are resistant to cold damage. So. Then you have the Kenku, basically a crow. +2 to dex, +1 to wisdom. So, there's that. The one thing I would toss out is the fact that they can't really speak. I'd toss that one out because who wants to just mimic people? Who wants to just mimic people? Shut up, shut up. Personally, I would chuck that out. Chuck out the fact that they can't speak out the window. Or have them quote lines, certain things from certain phrases from people that they might have known in their background. You want to get around that language barrier right away. Come up with a good backstory. Like, say, they traveled with a mercenary who would escort folks through the wilderness, and they learned all kinds of things. You know, that way you can at least talk around this limitation, or otherwise just chuck it out. Lizard folk, let's see here, you're a lizard, basically. +1, +2 to Constitution, +1 to Wisdom. So, cleric, druid, monk, ranger. Ranger really fits these guys. Kind of neutral. Let's see here. They have a bite attack. They can do basically bite, doing damage equal to 1d6 plus strength modifier. They can hold their breath for a long time. They gain a couple of skills. Natural armor is AC is 13 plus dexterity when they're not wearing armor. You can use that to determine your AC if your armor would leave you with a lower score. And you can use a shield. Under Jaws, as bonus action, you can make an extra bite attack. Then you have Tabaxi, cat folk, basically. +2 to dexterity, +1 to charisma. So, monk, Tabaxi monk's real fun to play as, because they can run really fast. This here, dark vision, cat's agility, feline agility. Basically, they can move double their speed until the end of the turn, which is a trait. You can't use it again until you move 0 feet on one of your turns. Basically, you can do this double dash, as it were, and then sit still, shoot your bow, whatever, not move, and then do this trick again. Cat's talent, you are proficient in perception and stealth. Then you have Triton. They're kind of a little bit like elves, a little bit. Kind of haughty. +1 to strength, constitution, and charisma. So, right away, paladin. I can definitely see him as being a paladin of the ocean. Somehow. Might need to work on the vowel. Let's see here. Tend to be lawful good. Other possibilities, like I said, strength-based fighter, barbarian, and of course, war. Let's see, bard, sorcerer, warlock. They can breathe air and water, so that's useful in a sea-based campaign. And also, they have a swimming speed of 30 feet, so again, that's useful. There's again a couple of other abilities. And you can communicate with sea creatures. And now you have some of the more monstrous races. Let's see here. It's kind of explains as to why you might want to play some of these guys. Let's see here. You have bugbear, hobgoblin, goblin, kobold, orc, and yonti. Let's see here. Bugbear, big dude. That's your +2 to strength, +1 to dexterity. So, all that which implies. They have dark vision. They are long-lived. They can make a melee attack on their turn. That's 5 feet greater than normal. That's kind of useful. They have powerful build. That's useful. Sneaky. They are proficient in stealth. Surprise attack. You surprise a creature and hit it with an attack on your first turn in combat. The attack deals an extra d6 damage to it. You can use the trait only once per combat. So, it's kind of limited use, but hey, it gives you an extra bit of damage, which Might put somebody out of the fight at a level 1. That's your Hobgoblin, +2 to Constitution, +1 to Intelligence. So, by the way, Wizard and Artificer. And they have martial training. They're proficient with 2 martial weapons of your choice and with light armor. Well, in that case, I don't know. Certain classes, certain classes may benefit from wearing armor. Others wouldn't. And of course, you got a choice of 2 martial weapons. Well, again, certain classes may benefit, others wouldn't. Goblin. They're basically like taking a level in Rogue for these guys. So, arguably, maybe not Rogue. +2 to Dexterity, +1 to Constitution. If you're really small, they can do an extra bit of damage. Nimble Escape, they can take Disengage and Hide as bonus actions. It's kind of useful. Cobalt. Now, word of warning, Cobalt has been changed. Dexterity is increased by 2. And this is Strength. Dexterity is increased by 2. And this one says Strength is reduced by 2. But that's been checked out. They have Dark Vision. And Sunlight Sensitivity. The Dark Vision is only 60 feet. The Drow and Duergar is 120 feet. And compared to this guy, he only has 60 feet, which is everybody else's Dark Vision. And he gets light sensitivity. That's not fair. Although he does get Pack Tactics, which grants him advantage on an attack roll against a creature if at least one of your allies is within 5 feet of the creature and the ally isn't incapacitated. So, I can see that. If your ally's within 5 feet of the enemy, well, you can negate sunlight sensitivity. Now you have Orc. You have Strength increased by 2, Constitution is increased by 1, and your Intelligence is reduced by 2. That part, the Intelligence part, has been chunked out. Let's see here. They're trained in Intimidation, but they've, as of recent revisions, as mentioned in, well, we're going to let's borrow Eberron for a moment. They now get to choose Animal Handling, Insight, Intimidation, Medicine, Nature, Perception, and Survival. So, a little bit more flexibility. And also you get powerful builds. Then you have the Yuan-Ti. A lot of folks like to ban the Yuan-Ti for being too powerful, but who knows? This might be just what you're looking for. Plus, these guys are kind of snake-like. Let's see here. +2 to Charisma, +1 to Intelligence. Let's see here. In a spell casting, you know the Poison Spray cantrip. Kind of useful. You can cast Animal Friendship an unlimited number of times with this trait, but you can only target snakes. That's useful in the jungle, right there. Maybe you can trim Caw, Or Sir Hiss. That's here you can cast at 3rd level, you can cast Suggestion with this spell. Kind of useful. You also have Magic Resistance. You have advantage on saving throws against spells or other magical effects. That's useful. Poison Immunity. Poison doesn't bother you. Poison wine, drink it! And Of course, if you're good, of course, if you're with your friends, you might at least say, "Buddies, if I were you guys, I wouldn't drink this." Of course, if you're trying to poison your enemy, just look at the enemy and say, "It's good." Yeah. Kind of useful. And let's see. Well, that's races and class. Well, like I said, I mean, there's, like I said, you just looking them up, and they're just a lot of fun, And that, well, like I said, plus, for the kobold, it's a +2 to Dex, and that's it. Personally, I grant him a floating +1. Put it somewhere. That way he can pick a skill. A class that fits him better. Maybe he wanted to be a paladin. Well, one thing to note, gnomes, halflings, kobolds, and goblins, they're all small, and they'd have a disadvantage using certain weapons, especially, heavy weapons. But, still, they look like fun. Well, I guess that's it for now. This is, they go from the Players Handbook up to Volos in terms of races. Best, good race class combinations. So, I'll continue this with another video dealing with Mordecai's Tumble Foes, and we'll see how far I can get on that. Well, thank you for watching this. See you around.